Hi, I'm James, and I'm going to show you some tips about how to use my workbook, How to Conquer Your Next IEP Meeting. The first section is all about opening up the channels of communication. And the most important thing to remember during this is you want them to understand that you're aware that this meeting is coming up, that you're committed to making it work, and that you're ready for it. So this next section is the most important section. It's all about collecting data. And I'm aware that you probably aren't very familiar with collecting data, so I want to give you a few tips about how to collect data and what to look for when you're collecting this information. So this section is broken up into two parts. There's a part for those of you who have outside service providers, people like speech therapists, occupational therapists, behavior therapists. We want to collect their input, and there's a section that is just for that. A lot of you will not have outside service providers, so there's a section that's all about things that you can do to collect information that'll be helpful for your teachers at that IEP meeting. So when you approach your service provider, I find it to be really helpful to let them know that you really appreciate what they're doing. Let them know that your kid's been really successful meeting their goals, and you think that there are some things that they're doing that your IEP team could really learn from and adapt and use in the classroom. So when you approach your service provider, ask them, will you please do a little report for me? And please make sure to include what is it that you do that gets my child to really work so hard for you. Because if that can be transferred into a classroom, that's going to be something that makes a really big difference for your kid. So this next section is the one where most people will fall into. It's data collection at home. You're going to be collecting data based on 4 areas: homework, reading, writing, and math. And I'm going to walk you through the process about how to collect that information, and in this video I'll be providing a few tips for each area. So this section is all about collecting data about homework. I'm going to give you a few tips about this bottom part, which is all about the actual data collection. So you're going to have your child sit down and do the homework. And 2 things that are really important to note is, the first, if your child needs help in order to be able to answer the questions, that is something that'll be really important to bring to the IEP meeting. If your child can do all the homework, one thing that's really helpful to note is, 1, how long it takes them from start to finish to get all their homework done, but 2, take note about how much time is wasted with distractions. So one way that you can do that, if you have a stopwatch that is silent, you can sit there, watch them. If their heads are down and they're doing writing, you know that they're doing their homework. However, as soon as they kind of look up, start gazing around, don't give them a redirection. Don't let them know that they need to get started. Just silently click your timer and keep track of how much time is actually wasted with procrastination. If it's not, and they're working consistently throughout the entire time, again, that's really important for your teachers to know. Maybe what they need is a modification. Maybe they need a little bit less homework. So the next section that we're going to talk about is collecting data on reading. Now this is going to be a really important section because reading affects students' education in many different ways. I'm going to focus on this part, which is basically, it's a very informal reading comprehension test. And they're carefully designed so that each question actually corresponds to a reading skill. For example, in reading comprehension, you have 2 types of questions. One that can be directly answered from the text. Say the text says, Johnny went to school today. And you ask the kid, where did Johnny go? He went to school. Yay, you answered what's called an explicit comprehension question. A lot of the higher order thinking questions are less explicit. They're hidden within the lines of the text. Let's say Johnny throws his books down, stamps off, and slams the door. The question would be, how was Johnny feeling? A lot of kids with special needs have a hard time answering that kind of question because the answer is not explicitly in the text. And finally, this last section, you're going to be collecting data on math. Now, regardless of where your kid is, from kindergarten all the way up till 12th grade, there are going to be some basic math skills that they're going to need to know in order to be successful. So I would highly recommend you go to www.mathaids.com with a little hyphen in between, and you can print off any kind of worksheet. Also, take a look at what kind of homework they're already doing, and then you can find a worksheet, have your kid go through, give them about 5 minutes to finish it, and then you're going to be able to bring to the meeting evidence of what your kid can do. So the next section that we're going to talk about is writing. Basically, what this section is going to allow you to do is give your kid what we call an unprompted writing task. So it's kind of free reign for them. So have a child write a letter to a loved one is a great way to kind of get a lot of ideas out on the paper. So you're going to kind of talk through with them, what is it that they want, and then just let them write. Don't do any corrections. Maybe give them a few ideas for new sentences they can write. But you're going to want them to write anywhere between 5-10 sentences so that you can get a good idea of what kind of writing they can do when it's something that they're interested in, when they're engaged in. And one last thing about the writing, I think it's really important that you don't make your child rewrite it. You're going to want to bring a first draft to the meeting, because the fact of the matter is, unedited, that is where your child is starting from. And you want that information to be incorporated into the IEP, because even with the flaws, even with the mistakes, even with the simple sentences, it's going to allow your teachers to see where your child is starting from, and then the goal is to bring your kid up from where they are to where they need to be. And this last section is all about how to get the meeting started off on the right foot. There's 2 things as a parent that you can do to help the meeting go as smoothly as possible. And the first is to be professional. Now, I'm not saying that you're not professional. I'm just saying if you approach this meeting as if it's a business meeting, like you're about to meet with your clients or you're about to meet with your boss, then you're going to compose yourself in a way that's going to help get the results that you really need for your child. And the second thing that you can do is to remind everybody why they're there. You can bring a picture of your child, you can show a little video clip of your child interacting with something, but the most important thing is that everybody gets a physical reminder that they are here to help your child learn. So that's it for How to Conquer Your Next IEP Meeting, a preparation guide. If you like this, but you're kind of wondering to yourself, now that I'm prepared, what do I do during the IEP meeting? I've come up with a new workbook that walks you through step by step each section of the IEP itself. It has questions you should be asking. It has places for you to write notes. If you're interested in this, I'll be sending you some more information, so keep an eye out for an email from me in your inbox. In the meantime, if you have any specific questions about your IEP, I do offer one-on-one IEP coaching, so go ahead and send me an email at james@speciallearningteacher.com. Have a happy IEP.